Fran, Oscar, Carlos, and Antonio shared the same passion: the viral challenges that circulated on the internet. They had proven their bravery in a wide range of challenges, from the most popular to the most obscure and little known. They already had a great experience, and they demonstrated it on their YouTube channel. Although they hadn't gained a large number of followers, they didn't care. Fame and money were not their motivation. They simply enjoyed the entertainment that the challenges provided. They really wanted to face a new, extremely extreme one, something that would test their limits. So after exhaustively researching, they found one called the Crow Challenge. It was said that the winner would experience a full life if all went well, although the most likely option was failure and could end the player's own life. Oscar, the most skeptical, initially opposed it, considering it meaningless. On the other hand, Antonio wasn't entirely in favor, although his objections came from a completely opposite perspective. He had quite a bit of respect for it. However, Fran and Carlos managed to convince them. The challenge could be done alone or in a group. To begin with, they had to meet in a dark environment, and if there were several participants, position themselves in such a way that everyone could see each other. After making the intro to a video for their channel, they headed to Fran's room. Once there, they closed the door and lowered the blinds, creating the perfect atmosphere. The first phase required reciting in Latin. "Black crow, fix your gaze on us, the wings are about to unfold." So the four friends, arranged in a circle, intoned the words. Next, they waited for at least 6 minutes, the stipulated time for the crows to arrive from the underworld, according to the instructions. "The challenge has begun," the page announced. "Now each of you is under the gaze of a crow from the abyss, although it hasn't yet arrived. This is your last chance to turn around. However, if you do, you must be aware that one of the crows will be watching you for life." "Do you want to leave?" Oscar said, mocking Antonio. "Leave it now," Fran scolded him. Before moving on to the next phase, a prayer was required to be recited, also in Latin. The first part said, "First door, door of fear, open." The four of them came together and said the Latin words in unison. Then they went to the bathroom, each one with a lit candle, and stood in front of the mirror. The challenge instructions continued. "The candle will act as a guide to attract a crow to our world. The process will take 3 minutes. However, the abyss is a place of deep darkness. If the candle is not extinguished at that moment, the crow will be dazzled and his eyes will burn. For this reason, the crow will only come if the following prayer is recited in Latin. All-seeing crow, may this light illuminate your path to our world, and I promise by my eyes that I will not hurt yours." The four friends said the entire prayer at the same time in front of the mirror. To ensure they met the exact time, they set the stopwatch on their mobile phones that would tell them when to blow out the candle. The 3rd minute arrived. Fran, Carlos, and Antonio extinguished the candle instantly. However, Oscar didn't do so. He blew, but it wasn't enough and the candle was lit again. Surprised, he blew again, and then he managed to put it out. Antonio looked at him with concern. Oscar noticed his friend's face and assured him in a firm voice, without betraying any hint of fear, that nothing was going to happen to him. They continued with the next step, in which they had to play a melody with an ocarina, or failing that, a flute. However, whoever chose to play the melody with the flute had to know that their margin of error was 0. With the ocarina, on the other hand, they could have up to 3 errors. They opted for the flute because Fran had one collecting dust in an old drawer. One was enough, since it was not necessary for everyone to play at the same time. Fran read the instructions aloud. "Now that the crow is in your world, you must get it to follow you. To achieve this, you must play a melody with the crow's favorite instrument, the ocarina. The crow will only accept 3 errors. A flute can also be used, but the crow doesn't enjoy it as much, so there can be no mistakes. You will only listen once the second opening sentence is done, so it can be practiced. However, the crow's patience is not infinite. It will only wait 3 days. If done in a group, each person must play separately, and the prayer must also be individual. Any melody that consists of exactly 10 notes, all of them low, is accepted. The 4 practiced their respective melodies, and the next day they met in Fran's yard. The prayer, which was to be pronounced in Latin, was: "Second gate, gate of dedication, open. Crow that hears everything, may this melody serve to gain your trust. I offer my ears as a guarantee." Carlos was the first, recited the prayer in Latin, and began to play. He did it without making mistakes. The same thing happened with Fran and Oscar. Then it was Antonio's turn. He looked nervous. He said the prayer and began to play the melody. However, around the 7th note, he went out of tune. His expression after finishing reflected even greater concern. Fran and Oscar noticed his nervousness and quickly encouraged him with reassuring words, assuring him that it was just a game and that nothing was going to happen to him, that all of that was nonsense that people made up. However, his tranquility didn't last long. A day later, they decided to continue with the recordings and the challenge. Antonio arrived very nervous, saying that they should stop with that challenge. He felt like he was starting to lose his hearing. Oscar reacted as always, with ridicule and telling him that this was just his subconscious. But Antonio was convinced that he was right. "No, Oscar, it is not my subconscious. Do you remember that you also told me that yesterday you started to see blurry?" His friend started laughing out loud and argued that he had spent many hours editing in front of the computer. He told him that he was hallucinating and that he had taken that challenge seriously. Even so, Antonio tried to convince his friends to stop and not continue with that dangerous challenge. Since everyone seemed to ignore him, in a fit of hysteria, he took his cell phone out of his pocket and decided to delete the YouTube channel. The young people threw up their hands. All the material they had created over the years had disappeared. Antonio didn't show regret. He felt that he had to do it so that his friends would have no reason to end that challenge. But Fran tried to reassure the group with his words. "I never did this for you two. I did it to hang out with my friends. The Crow Challenge is just for that, having an entertaining moment. Nothing bad's gonna happen. Furthermore, even if it were true, we have already started it. And it is assumed that if we abandon it, we will lose and the consequences could be fatal. So let's continue having fun as always." His speech seemed to convince them all. At this time, it was already the 3rd day, so they continued right there, although the situation was becoming quite complicated. They read the instructions aloud so they could continue. "Now a crow is interested in you. However, he still doesn't fully trust. To achieve that, you must cook a dish and leave it ready in a place where you can see the moon. You must prepare a dish for each member of the group. Crows eat raw food, so no cooking is necessary. You just have to put the ingredients together. The opening prayer should be performed before cooking, and the other when placing the plate in the place where the crow will dine. Both prayers should be said in a round if you're in a group. The ingredients are the wing of a bird, a chicken wing will suffice, a fruit, a few drops of human blood, and a corpse, whether of an animal or human, but it must be whole." They had no problems with the first 3 ingredients. The difficulty lay in the last one. Frank grabbed a bird his dog had caught. Oscar ran to the road and found a toad that had been run over. Antonio used one of the fish his father had caught the day before. Carlos, however, failed to achieve anything. "It looks like I'm going to be the only one to overcome this challenge," commented Fran. The opening prayer read, "Third gate, gate of pleasure, open." They placed all the ingredients on a plate each and went up to the roof of Fran's house. They didn't have time to look for a better place, and they continued with the words, "Crow that tests and judges everything, let this dish be the necessary proof on me. I swear by my stomach that it will please you." They slept together, and during the night, Fran got up while his friends continued sleeping. He went up to the roof. Despite his speech, he still doubted if all that was true. Since he was the only one who hadn't failed, he didn't care if it was real or not. He preferred his friends to continue believing that everything was a fable. When he arrived, he saw the empty plates. It could have been a cat that had raided them, but he just took them down and washed them. He would say he couldn't wait because he needed the dishes cleaned as soon as possible. They reached the next step. It was the most peculiar. They had to get a mannequin, put a wig on it, and a black dress or suit. Once with clothes, they had to take him to an abandoned building or under construction. So they created a small mannequin with a black dress and blonde wig. They took him to an abandoned hospital and left him in one of the rooms of the second floor. Before leaving, they said in Latin, "Fourth gate, gate of meeting, open." And they read the rest of the instructions. Once you have located the figure, you must leave and return at least the next day and at most 3 days later. However, you should not go alone. Each one must have a companion. The gender and age of the person accompanying you doesn't matter. All of you together must remove the mannequin and spend the night in the same place. At this stage, the crows don't allow separation. If the crow is interested, it may choose your companion for you. The friends stare at each other in surprise. Who could ask for something so peculiar? Who would accept such a proposal? They spent 2 days thinking about it, and it seemed like they wouldn't find anyone willing. However, on the second day, during his literature class, his homework assignment was to write a horror story. Fran wrote about ghosts. Carlos shared one of his most recent nightmares. Antonio developed a story about monsters, while Oscar chose to capture the steps of the Crow's challenge. On the third day, they found their companions. 4 literature professors were attracted to Oscar's imagination. Although they were disappointed to learn that he had taken it from the internet, the teachers were interested in the challenge and decided to offer their help. That same night, the 8 headed to the abandoned hospital. Upon arrival, they discovered that the entrance to the room where the mannequin was located was blocked due to a collapse. The young people became discouraged, but the teacher suggested entering through the window. It was risky. One had to reach the window of the room adjacent to the mannequin from outside, while another held him in his arms. Fran volunteered to venture out the window. After all, risk was part of what they were looking for in that game. One of the teachers supported him as he snuck inside. The plan was carried out successfully, and the 8 returned safely with the mannequin. They spent the night together at Fran's house. Both the parents and the sister weren't at home. They had been away for 10 days. Fran slept on the couch, his friends in his room and his sisters, and the teachers in the guest rooms. Fran woke up at 10 in the morning. He looked out the window and saw the 4 teachers. They were staring at the house. "Are you okay? Where are the boys?" the young man asked, but they took a while to respond. One of the teachers answered that they were still sleeping, but something was smelling strange to Fran. He ran towards his room. He didn't find anyone. He looked in his sister's room. Nobody. In his parents'. Neither. Not even in the guest room. If it had been any other time, he might have thought it was a bad joke, but not. Not after seeing that all the plates, except Carlos, were empty. That challenge had stopped seeming harmless to him, so he decided to lock all the doors. The teachers slowly approached the window. Fran lowered the blind in their faces while they hid it. The challenge of the crow. That was all the fault of that damn challenge. The only way to survive was to complete it. So he grabbed the mannequin and decided to go to the garage. There, he would have more time to think. When he passed through the garden, what he saw chilled him. There were 4 crosses, and on 3 of them lay the lifeless bodies of his friends. "You heard his eyes, now he will take yours," it said, carved under the body of Oscar, whose eyes were missing. "You heard his ears, now he will take yours," was written under the corpse of Antonio, whose ears had been removed. "You heard his stomach, now he will take yours," appeared on the Carlos' gutted body. They all shared 2 terrifying characteristics in addition to their chilling fate: a deep cut on their chest and a drawing of a crow carved into their right arms. Then he remembered the last 3 steps. Cut off his right arm in the shape of a crow, and upload a photo of that bird in a public place and publish it on a social network. He locked the garage door, placed the mannequin, and began to recite in Latin, "Last gate, gate of the end, open. May all my sacrifices have been sufficient to be to your liking, and if they aren't, have a representative of yours take my life as an eternal apology, because I don't deserve to see you in person." The zipper on the mannequin's dress began to unzip. Suddenly, a blonde girl emerged from the mannequin wearing a black dress, the same as the mannequin, but with feathers. It was clear that she was a representative and his death was inevitable. But she's just a girl. However, a crow emerged from the girl's face, his beak stuck into the young man's leg, and then disappeared. The girl dodged a kick, threw him to the ground, grabbed a knife, and stabbed Fran's hand into the ground. She repeated the same action with the other. With a third knife, she carved a crow into the young man's right arm. Then she grabbed his cell phone and walked away. It was useless to try to free himself. The knives were stuck deep, but Fran didn't want to die. He struggled with his severed hands and managed to get up. His hands were divided almost in half. The pain was unbearable, but he still managed to kick the phone out of the girl's hand. He thought that if he destroyed the phone, the girl wouldn't be able to post the image and perhaps he could be saved. He ran to where his cell phone was, about to step on it and break it, but one of the literature teachers broke the window, grabbed him by the neck and took him outside. The 4 teachers immobilized him and he could do nothing but watch as the girl grabbed his cell phone and posted the image. Then she approached him with a knife in her hand. 4 crows came from the void upon hearing the call, said the girl. But they met 4 young men who took it as a joke. Maybe you didn't fail any of the tests, but like the other 3, you failed to give your heart to the crow. Now, it will take yours. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode.